What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. And guys, we wanted to kind of break this issue down a little bit more. We've been talking as Colts fans over the last few weeks here, talking about what's the issues going on with this Indianapolis Colts football team right now. And I think most people assume the same three answers for the majority of it. But I think some people are either trying to look past certain things or trying to make it seem like one thing's more important than the other. But we kind of just wanted to talk about it real quick. And we wanted to talk about this Colts offensive line just a little bit more because, I mean, Cody, we've been seeing it. You and I saw it on grand display Thursday night of just how bad this offensive line still is, even after the last second changes that they made during the week where they were practicing with certain guys at certain different positions. You had about three different roster moves made during that game. Actually, it's four if you count the Ryan Kelly situation where he got hurt. First off, your opinion on this offensive line, and do you think if the Colts are able to make some kind of change here with personnel or even with a potential coaching change with the offensive line coaches and whatnot, do you think that would be the answer to a lot of this team's problems?
At this point, I don't know how to fix this. I mean, dumpster fire is the word that comes to mind, right? It's horrendous. And it seems like the Colts don't have an answer, right, at this point. And I'll just say this: Matt Pryor cannot see the field again as a starter. I mean, you talk about bad. He was next level bad at right tackle. He was consistently getting beat all the time, and it was a major, major issue. I do think if you could figure out that right side of the offensive line, I'll feel a little bit better about how I felt about it, in the past and stuff, because, Bernhard Raimann at left tackle, I get it. He wasn't great. He had a lot of holding penalties, which, whether or not you think they're legit, whatever, they were still penalties. They still hurt your football team. But I just feel like he needs to be the starter long-term at left tackle this season. You don't need to touch that. Don't destroy the rookie's confidence. Just let him go out there and learn at this point. And, right tackle is the biggest thing that the Colts need to figure out, whether that's moving Braden Smith back out to right tackle and maybe putting, I don't know, like Will Fries over there at right guard or something. I don't know if the issue is going to be solved this year, Derek, but I do think you can make it slightly less worse, if that makes sense. Because it's pretty bad. And the bad thing is a lot of these guys that you're paying a ton of money to haven't really been playing up to their contracts, right? You think Braden Smith, which I actually thought when he played guard, I know there was some miscommunication because it wasn't very much a last minute change, but I do feel like he played pretty well in terms of pass protection pretty much all night. So I'm encouraged by that. Maybe that's something the Colts like, and they just keep him there and they try to figure out right tackle moving forward. But whatever the situation is, it just can't be the combination it was on Thursday night, because it was bad before. It was worse on Thursday night, which is crazy to say because it was, bottom tier before. And it was even like a level beyond that in terms of bad. So I think there are things that you can do potentially. And who knows, maybe the Colts do look to find another competent offensive lineman at the guard position or whatever, and they move Braden Smith back outside. I don't know. There's a lot of combinations they could try. But I guess I'm encouraged because they're trying things. But at the end of the day, you got to figure this out because Matt Ryan's already been hit so many times this year. He's already been sacked so many times this year. And you can even see it, Derek. There was on Thursday night, I remember a play specifically where the pressure, Matt Ryan was feeling the pressure. He didn't get hit, but he thought he was going to get hit because that's what's been happening all year, right? And so he throws a bad ball or he throws it away where he could have made a play if he had confidence that offensive line could hold up. They just haven't so far. So I think at this point, I'd rather play some of these young guys as opposed to a guy like Matt Pryor and just let them figure it out because you can't do much worse, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other changes that could be coming, but yeah, I do agree with you on the stance of Matt Pryor, and I think everyone has kind of had that same scenario at this point. Matt Pryor should not be starting, and I think there's a lot of people that are saying he should not be playing at all at this point. But the difference is, the reason why I wouldn't go that far is because we saw last year where he came in a role situation where he had to play where Braden Smith was hurt, and he came in and did well in just a backup role, not taking on the full responsibility of a starting role. And I think that was better suited for him. I mean, we see this all the time, right? Where guys are, guys who are like career backups because they never excel as a starter for a whole season, but they excel in the moments when they know their gameplay is very limited and their job is not going to be there when the next guy comes back. So they really come in and do a fantastic job filling in. And that was something Matt Pryor did. But right now, I mean, the experiment of Matt Pryor being a starter on this offensive line has failed. It is bad. I mean, he was already bad at left tackle and then got moved from left tackle, and you thought, oh, okay, well, if we move him to right tackle, then, at the end of the day, you thought, oh, okay, well, maybe he could be better there. And sure enough, he had the worst day of any offensive lineman this season. Of any offensive lineman. So it went to show you that he is not ready to take over this starting role. And there are only two quarterbacks that have been sacked as many times as Matt Ryan has. One of them being Matt Ryan, and the other one is Matt Stafford. Ironically enough, Matt Stafford has been sacked the same number of times through 5 weeks as Matt Ryan is. And we're seeing the decline of the Rams offense, right? We're seeing them not being able to put up the numbers they used to because their offensive line is not as good as it once was. Matt Stafford doesn't have the time to throw the football. Sure, he finds Cooper Kupp every once in a while, but that's their entire offense. They can't run the ball consistently. They can't get it to any other receiver, it seems like, other than Cooper Kupp on a few drag routes every once in a while. It feels like it's the same thing for Indianapolis, right? Where, we can't run the football and Matt Ryan has no time to throw the football down the field, right? Now, of course, this is not excluding Matt Ryan of blame. Obviously, Matt Ryan, what he's been doing with the turnovers, that has to change. But then again, when you look at it, Cody, from the perspective of just how bad the Indianapolis Colts offensive line has been, and it's translating because you're seeing it in other teams too. You're seeing it with the Bengals. Joe Burrow's been sacked 18 times this year. You're seeing it with the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson's been sacked 16 times this year. You get guys that are all being sacked at a very high percentage, and their offenses just change, and their offenses are incapable of doing things. When we saw some really good offenses last year, again, the Bengals and the Rams, they were in the Super Bowl last year, despite the fact that the Bengals offensive line wasn't as good. It's still not good now, but they were able to do some things because they were able to open things up because the offensive lines got better at the end of the year. But like for Indy, it was kind of the same way, right? Like even Carson Wentz was not getting blitzed and pressured the same way that Matt Ryan is right now from last season. So it really is hard to offensively do things when your offensive line is playing this poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, like, the thing that we thought might be an issue this season, right, wide receiver, tight end, the weapons that Matt Ryan would have, they have not been the issue. They have not been the issue at all. When Matt Ryan has had time, he's found Alec Pierce. He's found Michael Pittman. He's found, Paris Campbell. He's found Ashton Doolin. He's found Jelani Woods. He's found Kylan, all these guys, Mo Ali Cox, all these guys that are here. It's like that hasn't been the issue. The issue has been he just doesn't have the time to find him half the time because he's under pressure, escaping, losing the football. And, it's so frustrating because, there's like the Colts will have drives where their offensive line actually protects a little bit and they go right down the field. And then it's just one play where Matt Pryor gets beat and then that blows up the entire drive, or whoever gets beat. And it just completely changes that drive where if your offensive line was halfway competent this year, I think you might be a 3-4 win football team, Derek. I'm not even kidding. Like,
yeah,
that's how ridiculously bad this offensive line has been. Right. And I think about like even that Kansas City game, even though the Colts won that game, right? If they were to be able to protect Matt Ryan better, the Colts probably would have blown out the Chiefs in that game with how good their defense was playing, right? And even the Denver game, the Colts, if they had any sort of competence at the offensive line position and Matt Ryan plays better, I mean, that's not even a close game. Like their defense has kept them in special teams, they've kept them in games. The offense has been slacking, and the biggest reason has not been surprisingly the wide receivers or tight ends, but it has been just the horrendous protection out there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when it comes to how the Colts are playing, I mean, even some of the guys, I think what's most disturbing about all this is the fact that this offensive line, it has some really good players on it, and we hinted about it kind of last week as well, talking about this group. And when you look at guys like Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith. All three of those guys have been letdowns this year. And it really sucks because Quentin Nelson, I mean, he was a top 30 player in this league and the second best offensive lineman by most people's standards. And he hasn't looked the same. Ryan Kelly's to the point where everyone wants him benched. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think about. I don't know what's going on with him specifically, but he's just not all there. He's just not all there. He looks like a complete shell of himself. Like you have the point where people are saying Danny Pinter needs to start at center for him now. And that's maybe a move that we could consider. And then, like you said, Braden Smith, he actually played relatively decently at right guard. But then again, we don't have a right tackle right now that can fill that role other than Braden Smith. And Braden Smith hasn't looked very great this year either. So very disappointing from some of these guys. But when it comes to the rest of the decisions made, we've made it clear we do not want Matt Pryor on this offensive line starting. So what does that mean for you for the right tackle and left tackle specifically in regards to what do you think this Colts offensive line needs to look like going forward? What's going on, everybody? Today, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, BetStamp. Now, I know what you're thinking. Derek, another betting app? What is so different about this one now? Well, I got to tell you guys, I'm not into online gambling a whole lot and bets online and everything, but I got to tell you, BetStamp is one of the coolest things I have ever seen in regards to betting online. The great thing about BetStamp is it allows you to see all the different odds from all different sports books and see which one provides you the best odds possible for any game or scenario you want to bet on for your pick versus some of the worst. BetStamp allows you to also buy and sell picks that you have without worrying about losing your money or having any issues with it. Believe me, it's all free. I mean, look at this, guys. You have an option for every game across all different kinds of leagues in a ton of different ways. You have baseball, you have college football, UFC, NBA, and NFL. Great for the NFL season now being here. And if I wanted to bet on this Tennessee Titans versus Buffalo Bills game, it shows me in real time what are the best odds, which sports book I'm going to get the best offer from versus some of the worst ones. Because why would you want to earn less money from PointsBet when you could be winning more from ProLine Plus? Again, a great thing that BetStamp offers you, allowing you to make more money for the same pick just with a different sports book. How easy is that? And the great thing is there's not just games. There's player props. There's game props. There's lines. There's live tracking. There's a ton of great ways to make bets and picks on BetStamp, guys. Totally a cool thing to use. I highly encourage you check it out if you're into any kind of online betting. Even if you're not, give it a check. See what you like about it, because I think I actually enjoy using it. But the best way to get an edge on online sports betting is having multiple accounts at different sports books. Be sure to hit the BetLink page, betstamp.app/onboarding. Be sure to check out the BetStamp app or online, and be sure to use the referral code JUICE, plug in your state, and you'll get access to all their affiliates and their prices once you open it up, seeing all states lines. Be sure to check this out, guys. You won't want to miss it for the best odds on your next sports bet.
All right, so here's what I would like to see. And I get it. This probably won't happen necessarily all the way. But I wouldn't be opposed to Ryman at left tackle, Nelson at guard, Pinter at center. You try to get something for Ryan Kelly because you talked about it. Like, he is just awful. Like, and you're paying him that much money, you might as well try to get something out of him before his contract expires or whatever. And then right guard, I'd probably stay Will Fries. And then just because you don't have anybody at right tackle, I'd probably move Braden back there right now. And maybe during the offseason, you think about, okay, maybe Braden's better at the inside, we feel like. But as it stands right now, you have nobody else that can play competent right tackle outside of Braden Smith. So that's probably the combination I'm looking at. How realistically, probably Kelly will be the starting center, and Danny Pinter will be the primary backup at center. But, if I'm choosing, I think that's the lineup that's played the best out of anything. And, also the lineup that I think has the most potential. Because I talked about Ryman. I think he's only going to get better. He has to only get better at this point because he didn't have he was okay, but I feel like he's a really good player. Like, we've talked about it. We were surprised when he fell all the way to the third round. We feel like he has a lot of talent, and the Colts obviously do too. So I'd rather just have him go in there trial by fire, knowing he's not going to be perfect, but it's going to go a long way for his development. And you see sometimes with these rookie guys that just kind of get thrown in the fire sometimes, they get better, right? They get better. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then, I think Pinter right now, I think he played really well, actually, all things considered, coming in for Kelly. So, I'd rather have him right now. He's a younger player who's clearly a lot better at center than he is at guard. Why not just go with the young players that are on those rookie or second or third year deals that aren't really expensive right now? I wouldn't be opposed to that because then it allows you to do more things next off season to address some other positions. Maybe you go back and address offensive line somewhere else. I don't know. But that's kind of, I think, how in the immediate it probably has to look. What do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm pretty much at the same boat as you. Bryman needs to be at that left tackle position going forward. Obviously, first big, you're starting, your time to shine. It's a really tough assignment for him, right? Going up against Bradley Chubb and Baron Browning, who were, putting stunts on them all night long, right? And the holding penalties got really tough early on. Now, I will say this, he got called for holding 4 times in that game. I'll be completely honest. Thought 2 of those holdings were very, very iffy. But at the end of the day, needless to say, still had his butt handed to him in the beginning. But then everyone was looking back at the film and saying, okay, he looks like he started to dial in a little bit. Looked like he kind of settled in a little bit better. Now, obviously, I think that's true because at the end of the game, we just saw all the pressure coming from the right side, not the left side. So maybe that is the truth. And then
absolutely.
Yeah. And then when we're talking about the center position, I think it is time that Danny Pinter gets the start at center. I think that when you look at it from a run blocking perspective, Ryan Kelly and Quentin Nelson, they have a very special connection. They do a fantastic job of double teaming and getting to the second level. That's why the Colts love running the ball up the middle so dang much, because when those two get their blocks moving, there's a hole there every time that they move it. But you're not seeing the same production come out of Ryan Kelly in the pass blocking perspective. While he has only given up 1 sack this year, the number of pressures that he has given up by simply not blocking people is very, very concerning when you look at the film from everything. I mean, I just have to point back to the Chiefs game. The Chiefs game, how many times he let somebody shoot his gap and just didn't block anybody? I mean, that's concerning. He's become a liability in that argument, and you can't get any worse. I understand you're paying him that money, but I mean, like you said, try to trade him because at this point you need to find something that's going to be better for your center position. And I think we all agree, Danny Pinter, if he's going to start anywhere, needs to be center. It needs to be center. It seems to be the only spot where he shines in. And at that spot, because he's, in my opinion, he's not strong enough to be a guard, and he's just not quick enough or powerful enough to take on edge rushers. I think having the center position is great because he can pick up those blitzes coming across the middle, He's a very good communicator. I think he would do well with whatever your right guard situation, and then with Quentin Nelson on the other side. I think he does a good job with that. Now, on the right side of the offensive line, I would think Braden Smith should be right tackle, and then Will Fry should be your right guard going forward. Now, what do you think of the idea of Braden Smith staying at right guard and then having Dennis Kelly be your right tackle going forward?
I'm all down for it. Whatever works at this point. It's just like, how does he look, at right tackle? I mean, he can't probably be much worse than Matt Pryor. Whatever the combination is that works, I'm good with that. I just think it makes more sense because Braden has been better, because he's played right tackle pretty much his entire career. So it is like changing two positions right there in a row, But yeah, I mean, if he continues to play well at guard and pass pro, and Dennis Kelly comes out there and offers you competence at right tackle, I would be fine with that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Definitely think that could happen. Now, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the right tackle position going forward. Do they move Braden Smith back, or do they go with the Dennis Kelly route? But all in all, guys, I think that's really it when it comes to us explaining what we would do with the offensive line. I think most people are in agreement with that on how that should go. But all in
Yeah,
all, again, it depends
absolutely.
on what the Colts feel is necessary.
Yeah, one more point I wanted to make on Bernard Ryman. I mean, my goodness, that has to be crazy for him. Like, I don't know how soon the Colts let these guys know, hey, this is going to be the combination tonight. But it seems like a lot of people were caught off by surprise. So that tells me maybe they made that decision that day. But you think about what Ryman did. I know he wasn't great, but primetime game against one of the better pass rushers in the league. Yeah, he struggled, but I was honestly encouraged given the circumstances. It kind of gave me similar vibes in some ways to when Braden Smith kind of got forced out there in that Patriots game I think it was a primetime game as well. Whenever injuries happened, he basically was forced to go out there and play right tackle, and he did a good job, And so it kind of gave me similar vibes to that, It's just the Colts decided to make a move here, and it's kind of like good luck, Rook. And I thought he did a decent job, all things considered. So I want to see more of him. I think he'll only get better with time, and I'm encouraged by that.
Yep. So really, guys, I mean, we're not discrediting. We're not going to shift blame away from Matt Ryan and the coaching and things of that nature. This was just simply pointing out the facts of this offensive line and what we would maybe potentially do to change it. But nevertheless, this Colts offensive line definitely needs to get its stuff in order. Things need to change one way or the other, but we will see what they do going in throughout this week, and we'll see if we'll find out by Friday or Saturday. Maybe even won't even find out until Sunday when the team gets out on the field who is going to end up being where, because the Colts are probably going to do that to make sure that teams don't have a chance to game plan against them, especially now because you got the Jaguars coming into town again. And we saw what their defensive ends did to us last time that they came to town. So we're going to see what happens. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on the offensive line and what changes you guys would make. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.